In a world where love and hope often bring us together, there are stories that take a dark turn, leaving behind nothing but pain and loss. This is the tragic story of Phumeza Pepeta and Xolani Mkayi, a South African couple whose love story ended in heartbreak. Phumeza was born on the 2nd of July 1975 in Uitenhage, a town in the Eastern Cape province. She's the firstborn child to her parents and has a younger sister. She grew up in a loving family of 4, with both her parents being in the household, and was raised in a nurturing environment. She went to school in Port Elizabeth, which is just 40 kilometers outside of Uitenhage, where she attended Woolhope Secondary School. After completing her grade 12, she went to Nelson Mandela University, where she completed her diploma in Human Resources Management and Services. She also went on to do a Bachelor of Business Administration and Management, and years later earned an MBA from NMMU Business School. Phumeza was a hardworking woman who excelled in many areas of her life. Over her long and fruitful career, she worked for numerous companies, including Coca-Cola, ABSA, and Hella, just to name a few. She thrived in all of these positions, but was always looking to improve herself and find better opportunities. Phumeza was not only a career-driven person, but also someone her friends described as kind, loving, and always wearing a big, infectious smile. She was known to be present for the important people in her life. Before meeting the man who would become her husband, she already had a beautiful baby boy. A few years later, she met Xolani, who was 10 years older than her. Born in 1965, Xolani worked at the tire dealership Goodyear. Though he wasn't as established as Phumeza, he was doing reasonably well for himself. They met and fell in love almost instantly. Not long into their relationship, Xolani asked for her hand in marriage and paid lobola to her family. The two were married. At first, they seemed like a normal, loving couple. They appeared deeply in love and were often seen together, giving the impression of a young South African couple with dreams of a bright future. Phumeza became pregnant with their second child, a beautiful baby girl, who would be their only child together. From the outside, the couple seemed happy and successful, but their marriage was troubled. Behind closed doors, Xolani often laid hands on Phumeza, and resentment grew on his part because of her career success, a success he struggled to accept. Eventually, Phumeza decided she could no longer stay in the toxic environment and began planning her exit. She secured a job in East London, 300 kilometers away from Port Elizabeth, as an HR executive at Dynamic Brands. She resigned from ABSA in Port Elizabeth and told Mkayi about her new job, framing it as an opportunity to support the family. She didn't initially mention her intention to leave the marriage, knowing it would provoke him. Instead, she maintained a long-distance arrangement, traveling to Port Elizabeth on some weekends while living in East London during the week. This continued from 2014 to 2018. Phumeza eventually moved both children to East London, bought a house, and fully settled into her new life. In 2019, she finally found the courage to initiate divorce proceedings. When she brought up divorce, Xolani became unhinged, unable to accept the separation. He began stalking her, traveling to East London frequently, even during work hours, and following her from a distance. If Phumeza was heading to work, he would be nearby watching from afar. If she was going to the shops, he was following her. And this happened over a long period of time, to the extent that at some point, Phumeza started spotting him. That's when she decided to take this up with the police, because obviously this behavior was extremely irrational, and she was starting to get scared, not just for herself. She had asked for a divorce, and she had also reported him to the police and gotten a protection order. But unfortunately, this was just not enough. Regardless of the protection order, Xolani would continuously still follow her around. He would call her and request to see his child. Because of his behavior, Phumeza was afraid to let him see the child, fearing what he might do. She wanted the state to intervene and help facilitate this process, but in the interim, until that happened, he could not see the child as often as he wanted to. But she was definitely working on a system to try and make that happen. This drove Xolani crazy. He just did not believe that he was acting irrationally in any way. And he basically sent her a message saying, "If you are not allowing me to see my child, then both of us must not be able to see the child." This message gave the assumption that Xolani was probably going to do something bad to the child. Phumeza reinforced safety measures for both of her children. By 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic had started, and even with all the restrictions, Xolani had not stopped at all. He was still able to find ways to travel from Port Elizabeth to East London to follow Phumeza around. And during all of this, sadly, at the height of COVID, Phumeza's father contracted COVID and sadly succumbed to it on the 22nd of July, 2020. Because it was COVID times, the family had to quickly have a funeral within 4 days, and it was held on the 25th of July, 2020. Phumeza, who was in East London, traveled back to Uitenhage to bury her father and to be with her sister, as well as her mother during this very difficult time. The family quickly made arrangements for the funeral, and on the 25th of July, 2020, the funeral day came, and the funeral service was very dignified and beautiful, fitting for the man Phumeza's father was. Now, because of the times, the number of people allowed to attend was few, and following the funeral service, it was then time to go to the burial cemetery where Phumeza's father would be laid to rest. This is also when things took a dramatic turn. It moved from being a beautiful, dignified funeral for a dignified man to complete chaos. At the burial cemetery, Phumeza and her mother had just arrived. They were still in the car. Most of the people were already surrounding the burial site, but they were still in the car, consoling one another, and obviously so devastated because of the loss they were experiencing. It had been a long day already, so they were just consoling themselves before getting out of the car. It is said that during this time, the rest of the funeral goers who were already at the burial site noticed a tall lady in heels wearing a blue dress, a wig, sunglasses, a mask, and heels. This lady stuck out to everyone, and everybody was looking at her. Not because she was dressed dramatically, but because she was struggling to walk in her heels. Because it was during COVID times, she had her mask on, as well as sunglasses. She started walking quickly toward Phumeza and her mom's car. Now, as they were about to get out of the car, she found a gap and sadly shot Phumeza down. This caused a lot of commotion, because no one was expecting gunshots at a graveyard. The men who were at the funeral decided to catch this lady in the blue dress, and during all that struggle and commotion, the wig fell off. That's when people realized this was not a lady, it was Mkayi. They were furious and went at him. But family members later resolved to stop because they could have easily taken his life during all of that struggle. They then restrained him and tied his hands and feet with the ties they were wearing to the funeral. Thereafter, the police were called and eventually arrived to take over the scene. That day was truly chaotic. The saddest part was that Phumeza's mother, who had just lost her husband 4 days earlier, now had to watch her daughter die on the very same day she was burying her husband. Such a painful, unnecessary tragedy. And the place and method he chose made the situation even more horrific. The police arrived and took him to the Uitenhage police station. After investigations, it was found that Mkayi had planned this days prior. The car he drove to the burial site was hired because he didn't want anyone to trace him before he did what he intended. He had bought the clothes, wig, makeup, shoes, sunglasses, everything, days before. This was premeditated. He didn't just wake up and do this. He planned it. Because of all the overwhelming evidence, he was charged with taking Phumeza's life. He tried to get bail, but the judge denied it, which made Phumeza's family very relieved because they feared he might come after them next. Sadly, the 2 remaining members of Phumeza's immediate family were left to pick up the pieces after this devastating loss. Phumeza's kids were taken in by her sister and mother, who did everything they could to help them cope and navigate life without their beloved mother. After a long 2 years, the trial finally concluded in September 2022, when Xolani was found guilty of taking his ex-wife's life and sentenced to 25 years imprisonment. Phumeza's story is a tragic reminder of the many women who suffer in silence, trapped in abusive relationships. It sparked conversations across South Africa about the need to address domestic violence and provide support to those most vulnerable. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another story. See you in the next one.